guy. Super talented, super funny, dry wit extraordinaire. Amazing, supernatural, the key, Szarabajka!
Wow, I had no idea. I've never done a convention in America before. I only know how to do them in an English accent.
Well, we're the same as England, only we do ours on the other side of the street.
Oh, perfect. I thought I was on the wrong side of the street. So I don't know. You know, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad that you all are here. I hope you're having fun. I know it's a great disappointment that it's me and not Although I have to say, Donatello is one of the more fun characters I ever played. Right up there with Old Sign Angel. I don't know if any of you are aware of that. I don't have as many speeches though as Donatello as I did as Holtz. And Holtz, I can always come on and say, for 200 years I slept. For 200 years I dreamt of nothing but this moment. Donatello just would say things like, no, like the Renaissance sculptor. In the first episode, I remember when we were shooting that episode, and I was kind of nervous because it was the first time I'd worked with the boys, and what I did, and the crew, which I gotta tell you, except for Richard Spike, who directed me, every episode I did was just a pleasure. Because they couldn't have been nicer, both Jared and Jensen. And I know that's a great disappointment because you want to hear, oh, I want to hear about all the pranks that they did on you and Misha and whomever. Well, they didn't. They just treated me like I was a special guest star. They were really kind to me. Except for the first time that I was Donatello, and I had to say that line. They say, you mean like the Donatello? You mean like the mutant ninja turtle? And I go, no, Donatello like the Renaissance sculptor. But the first time I said it when we were rehearsing, I said, no, like Donatello, the Renaissance sculpture. I go, sculpture? Really? Please tell me you're going to be more animated than the David, all right? But anyway. That's my one story I have. Other than, does anybody have any questions they want to ask me? Oh, I won't go over there.
Hello. Hi. Thanks. Just want to tell you that I love your character, Donatello.
Yeah, I'm glad. I love that you love my character because I love my character.
My favorite line of yours is when you're speaking to Jack, and you tell him that you always say, "What would Mr. Rogers do?"
Oh, yeah.
I love it especially because I actually grew up in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. He was my neighbor.
In Pittsburgh?
In Pittsburgh, yep. And so he is quite an idol to me. And I was wondering if you could tell me the origin of that line, if you wrote it or if the writers came up with it.
No, Eugenie Ross Lemming and her partner Brad came up with it. And she's a very funny writer. She used to write on Mary Hartman, and Forever Fernwood, a whole bunch of stuff. So she just wrote great stuff. And she's an old friend of mine, actually, from Chicago. I've known her since 1972. And back in 2015, a mutual friend of ours, a very close friend, had passed away, Berta Custer, who was an actress and a writer and a director from Chicago, where we both are from. And this is going to be a little longer story, it probably won't be funny. That we were both invited to speak at Roberta's memorial. We both gave eulogies, you know, and I guess mine went well because Eugenie comes up to me and goes, "I'm putting you in my show," and that's how I got to be in Supernatural the last 4 seasons. But I had known Eugenie for, oh my God, since like 1972, and this was 2015. And, you know, she was always really beautiful. And now, you know, she's 70-ish. I don't know exactly how old she is, I would never say, but I'm also 70-ish. And she was always above my pay grade, let me put it that way. But I'm glad that you know, and we had fun doing it, a lot of fun. Anything else? Was that a long enough answer? I don't know. Did anybody fall asleep yet?
You got them all on this side.
Over here, okay.
So between Law and Order, All Real Monsters, and Wild Thornberries, you've been a constant presence in my life since I was probably about 2 or 3.
I'm sorry.
And I was just wondering, you know, you were in quite a handful of episodes of Law and Order, and I was wondering if you had any kind of fond memories of maybe working with Jerry Orbach or Chris Snow.
Jerry Orbach was actually great. I remember actually being in a steam room with him with a couple friends of mine from the show I had done called, what the hell was it called? Prophet. I remember that. It was on oh, you, the one person who actually watched the show. Thank you, by the way. That was one of my favorite shows. It was terrific, you know. But Jerry, he was a really good guy. I didn't really work with Chris Stone, so I can't really speak to him. Sam Waterston, I can address a little bit, is that we had to do all these like ridiculously long, lawyerly sort of dissertations, you know, and presentations in front of the judge, and they would go on forever sometimes. And Sam would move his foot and just step on my toe while we just let me go. I don't know why, maybe because I was nervous, you know, but it was a nice show to be on. I mean, the show that particular one that I was in, I lived in New York until a couple of years before I did it, and then I moved to LA at the behest of my now ex-wife, and my children were born there, and so I'm still living in LA. And it's I've come to make my peace with it. New York was where I really wanted to live, but you know, I have a great life. What can I say? Where was I going? Anybody remember what and we shot it in LA the first 6 weeks, and then we shot the next 6 weeks. It was actually a long job because it was like 3 episodes that were one big arc. You know, it was kind of loosely drawn off the O.J. Simpson trial and murder, you know, which I later directed a play at the theater company that I ran for 7 years in EST, Los Angeles project, Ensemble Studio Theater, the LA project, called Watching O.J., which was written by a writer from Lucifer called David McMillan. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, terrific writer. But it was about people in a little dry cleaners and a car repair store shop in like an Inglewood type neighborhood. I don't know if you're familiar with LA, but it's a mixed sort of neighborhood, you know. And so they drew across the whole spectrum. Everybody would come in, and it was all about how people reacted to well, they were actually going to watch the verdict be read at noon that day, and it starts at 7 o'clock that morning. And so, of course, they're all across the spectrum that you could possibly imagine. It was the biggest hit that we had at the theater. People would come in and cheer and cry and go, "Oh my God!" You know, but it was fun. Anyway, we shot in LA, and that went terrific. And then we got to New York, and I think one of the reasons why Sam was stepping on my toe was something the director really just had an edge on for me. It's like nothing that I did before, everything that I did was great. Once we were in New York, nothing that I did pleased him, you know. So it was one of those where I was constantly off balance, constantly just unsure of myself. And Sam, I think, was stepping on my toe to try and say, "Hey, just don't take it too seriously," you know. And it turned out the makeup guy had been the makeup guy on The Equalizer, you know, 5 years before. Thank you, the other person who watched it. Was that the same person who watched Prophet? And you know, I really love doing the job and stuff, you know, and I was like going, what's going on? And I go to this guy, the makeup artist, going, what's going on? You know, and he goes, oh, he didn't tell you? I don't know, because his stepson was killed in a car accident over Christmas. Because we shot before Christmas and then after. You know, before Christmas in LA and then after in New York. So from then on, I just sort of let it roll off like that, because I couldn't even imagine losing my child. I have children. In case anybody wants to go kill them. Dad, don't tell them where we live. God, what's wrong with you?
Soulless.
Sorry?
Soulless.
I can't hear what you're saying.
Soulless.
No soul, soulless.
Oh, I'm soulless. I didn't start out soulless, but I became soulless after a while. Just sucked me dry, which, you know, you can be sucked dry by a worse person.
Oh, Lord.
You're the one who's making it sexual, not me. I was talking about the spirit world. Where was your mind? So, now that I've successfully butchered that question, you have someone over on the other side there?
Hi. I've been a huge fan of Angel, and I viscerally hated you in that show. But when you were on Supernatural, I was so in love with Donatello. He is
Did you viscerally love me?
I wouldn't go that far. Taking it further than it needs to go. Hold on. All right. So.
I was just using your adjective.
Okay. So I was just going to give you kudos as an actor to be able to change my mind so much about you in that way. And I love, like I said, I love Donatello.
Well, thank you. Here's an interesting thing, is like, I've always tried to play Donatello evil, all right? And I tried to play Holtz as not, because let me ask you this question. Back when Angel was at Jealous, I know this is a supernatural convention, but she did bring up Angel.
I think there are some fans here of Angel.
And Jealous, Angel as Jealous, killed my wife. He and Darla ate my infant baby, all right? And then turned my darling 11-year-old daughter into a vampire, forcing me to dust her, and I'm the villain.
Touche.
But it's something that I firmly believe is that when you play a villain, you know, even if you play Adolf Hitler, you know, who's despicable, or Vladimir Putin, you know, I don't know what your politics are about Ukraine. I'm Polish, half Polish, well, quarter Polish, quarter Lithuanian, and half Irish. So, and I've never been to Poland, unfortunately, but the town that I found out that our family came from originally is actually called Pipernia, and it's in Belarus now, because those borders were very fluid and changed constantly. But I was telling Richard before I came on here, because he asked, how do you say your name? I said, with great difficulty. But it's Szarabajka. If you want to be very Polish about it, you say Szarabajka, you know, because it means gray fairy tale. But my company, for instance, is called Darktail Enterprises, you know, because I don't know, Darktail seems to be an appropriate name for someone who's been an Angel and in The Equalizer and in Supernatural. It just lends itself to it, so I keep it. Although my agents used to want me to change my name. But I have been very, very stricken by this invasion, and I feel for the people of Ukraine, and I wish to God we can do more for them. You know?
Yep.
And for what it's worth, you know, I'm kind of a big history buff, and Putin has played the Hitler handbook almost exactly, except for his hatred of Jews. It's just unbelievable. It's like Czechoslovakia, the Sudetenland, you know, the invasion of Poland. I mean, he's just playing it, and it's not going to stop here.
He should jump to the bunker part already.
Sorry?
He should jump to the bunker
I
part.
think he already is in the bunker, right? You know, with that 20-foot table it is.
Well, the ending.
Sorry, did I answer any of your questions?
That was a better story than my question could have answered it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think we're over here now.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
So I grew up watching Buffy and Angel. So all of the questions have been about Angel. I love it. So
You didn't or you did?
I love it.
Oh, okay.
It's hilarious. So between Holtz and Donatello, they both had some really awful things happen to them.
Yeah.
Like living in a hell dimension, having their soul eaten. Who do you think had it worse? Donatello or Holtz?
I think Holtz did. Honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, he ended up having to kill himself, or have Justine do it, pretend that Angel had killed him. You know, and I think he was actually really, truly heartbroken over the loss of his family, and I think that's what drove him to do what he did.
Oh.
That when you think about it, everything is understandable. And what I was trying to say was that no one acts out of a sense of doing wrong. All right, even complete psychopaths somehow think that they're doing right. So when you play a villain, you have to somehow figure out what their purpose was, what their motivation was, and what sense of right they thought they were accomplishing. Which is why I went off on the Hitler/Putin attack, because they both believed that they were restoring the former glory of their former empires. You know. And I think that that's what we're faced with now. Is, you know, and it goes back. It probably goes back farther, but you go back to to the Franco-Prussian War of 1870, where the Prussians seized Paris and seized Alsace-Lorraine from the French, and the French there was called revanchism, and they wanted to go and take back what they could at the end of World War I. With the Versailles Treaty, and took back Alsace-Lorraine and held on to the Saarland, and tried to make it so that Germany could do nothing, and then that, of course, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, both in chemistry and in human dynamics, historical forces. So just remember that. And my next big history lecture will be at. Did I answer your question?
I don't think so, but...
Oh, good. I'm very fond of digression, so.
No, I completely agree with you in the terms of the fact with Holt obviously had a very difficult life, but I would almost say that his ending, he was getting his ultimate revenge, which I think you could argue either way. He died sad or happy. I think it all depends on your perspective, whether or not you would consider receiving.
But my perspective on it is that even if he died feeling he'd accomplished his revenge against Angel, he still lost his family.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something from which one never really recovers. And I hope I never have to sense that, or any of you ever have to sense that. Because it just would be a vacuum that could never again be filled. And that's what I think happened with Holtz.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Over here, okay.
Hi.
Hi.
I really enjoy your character Donatello. And
Me too, thank you.
I love the affable, scattered academic. So I was wondering, what did you do, like I guess in your head, to become, like what did you do to become soulless? To go from the affable academic to still basically being an affable academic, but now a soulless one.
I memorized my lines and my marks. I mean, that's what they wrote, and I became a conduit. I had to speak in Enochian, Chuck would speak through me from time to time. Different people would take me over. I had to become, I was actually at a doppelganger, and I fought myself at one point, which was actually fun, by the way. You should always fight yourself if you get the chance. Did I answer that question? I don't think I did.
Good enough. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
So my gateway drug into fandom was X-Files, and that's the whole reason I started watching Supernatural, because Kim Manners worked over on Supernatural, so I came to it. So I was just curious if you could share anything about your experience with your episode on X-Files.
On X-Files. I thought they said Exiles. I was going, Exiles. Funny thing, when I was up doing Prophet in Vancouver, and they used to shoot X-Files up in Vancouver, this was like in 95, 96, my 42nd birthday, 43rd birthday was in Vancouver, and a bunch of people, had it through a party at this place called Tojo's, which was like a great sushi place in the Granville area. And it's going to be a long story, so just settle down. And David Duchovny came with Lisa Zenny, and he said, God, I really love your work. I want to get you on the show. Well, I didn't get on the show till after he left it. The same thing happened to me on CSI, by the way, because I knew William Peterson back in Chicago, because we came out of the same bunch of off-grid theaters. I was in the Organic Theater Company, and he was in Remains, and which, unless you have anything to know about the ancient history of Chicago off-grid theater, you would know nothing about. But Billy would always see me at Cubs games at Dodger Stadium and go, I'm putting you in my show! And I never got in CSI till after he left either. So I don't know what it is. I'm still trying to figure it out. And William H. Macy, who is an old friend of mine as well, has never had me in on Shameless. And I'm like going, gee, Bill, thanks. So did I answer anything?
I mean, yeah, sort of.
Yes, sir. Well, ask it again. Perhaps I'll give a more cogent answer.
What was your favorite part about filming on X-Files?
Oh, was what I had. Well, they had put a third eye in the middle of my eye. And they actually built one, but then they decided they were going to do it with CGI, and so they did little dots, and they just shot one of my eyes and put that eye in post in the middle of my forehead. And that was cool. That and being able to float above the table, in that one scene where I'm actually sitting in the lotus position and floating around the room, which I actually did, of course. That was my favorite part. Hello.
I've asked this question to both Elena and Tom so far this morning, and I've got really interesting responses.
Got it. Then I don't know why you're asking me.
When acting, do you play a character or become a character?
It's an interesting point of view. I mean, it depends on how far the character is away from yourself, but you always, and I was told this by one of my high school drama teachers, you always have to be yourself, the character you're playing, and the guy in the 10th row is watching you. You have to somehow figure out how to be all three of those at the same time. So that's my answer. But no, to me, I always try to be that character and not play that character. Because if it doesn't come from the heart, what's the point of doing it? You always have to bring it right into here, and then it comes out here. And I find that as you learn, you have to learn your part. I'm a professor at Woodbury University in LA. I teach in their film department. I teach acting for writing and directors, and it's an interesting thing because they often don't know what an actor has to do in order to learn a part. And I told them that one of the main things that you have, they teach the Stanislavski idea of, you have to break things down into bits, and you have to understand what your character's objective is, what the scene's objective is, and what the overall arc objective is of the character in the play, and the overall super objective of the play. And that's basic Stanislavski method. And every other acting teacher is I hesitate to say this, but I'm going to, is basically a sort of a reiteration of what Stanislavski taught. All right? And you have to learn your lines. Because until you have the lines inside you, at least for me, that it doesn't become physically part of you. somehow you have to figure out how to make that character physically part of you. You have to feel the physicalization of it. You know, there's a thing called the psychological gesture by a man named Michael Chekhov, who was actually Anton Chekhov, the famous Russian playwright's nephew, who taught in the United States. But his thing was like, it starts with like, if you're angry at someone, you're going to hold your fist up like this. But if you want something from someone, you're going to hold it out to them like that. Or if you want to stop them from doing something, you're going to go like that. Or if you want them to come in, you're going to go like that. And that's the beginning of where your character's sort of psychological gesture lies. I also teach that sort of about me as well. Anyway, does that answer anything?
It did. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Hi.
I've been a fan since Kostmeyer.
Oh, God.
I know. And so.
You don't look that old.
Oh, I just dyed my hair, so.
You're also very far away, so I.
So.
And in the dark.
This is the best way to see me.
Okay. It's probably the best way to see me as well.
So I was wondering, when you said that you played Donatello evil, but the other character not evil, I was just wondering if you had a perspective on Mickey in the same way.
Well,
how you played him.
Well, Mickey was an interesting character. I mean, I was originally, it wasn't considered to be a recurring character. I was brought on to do one episode, which was the third episode, and I just had such a good time doing it. You know, I got to like run off a rooftop. I remember once they were starting to shoot a scene, and they had a stunt guy there, and I was in really good shape back then. I would do, you know, I would run 4 to 6 miles a day. I would do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 30-some pull-ups. You know, just as a matter of course during the course of the day, just to get my energy going. And I also, in the theater company I was in for years, the Organic Theater Company in Chicago, I fired an amazing number of weapons. So I was kind of, you should never be, you know, as Alec Baldwin has proven, you know, you should never be casual about handling firearms. Everything, there's protocols, and never, ever, ever violate those protocols. But I'm not going to go into what happened to poor Alec. It's a terrible thing, you know. But I just had a gas doing it. Although I have to say that in that scene where you go in China Rain, I don't know if you remember, it was the first where I go in and had to literally hose the room with an Uzi. The thing about automatic weapon, what's that?
But McCall already had the diversion ready.
He already had the diversion
and
ready.
he had to remind you about that.
The firecrackers, right? Yes, that whole thing. And, you know, red before yellow kills the fellow, yellow before blue, the fellow is true. I think that's what it was. Neither of us were sure. You know, so we just, oh, what the hell, we'll put it together. But Edward and I got along so well in that. What I was going to say is that on set, automatic weapons always jam. Because when you're indoors, they'll use a quarter load or a half load, you know, and it's not enough to kick back the round usually. You usually have to use a full load, which to kick back the round and keep the automatic weapon rolling. So I've never actually met an automatic weapon that didn't jam on a set. But another digression, I'm good at this. But Edward and I just got along famously. And after the second or third day of shooting that episode, he called me in to his trailer, and I'm like, I guess I'm being called before the principal. I don't know. And he just sat there and talked to me for an hour. I just wanted to know where I'd studied, what I'd done, you know, and I told him. And after that, they just started hiring me. And by the end, and they hired me 4 times the first year. And then the second year, I found out later I was supposed to have been made a regular, but they forgot to do it. And so I went and did a movie, and I came back and I did 8 episodes the second year, because I came back for the second half of the season. And after that I did, I was hired for 17 out of 22 episodes for the next 2 seasons. We actually thought we were going to do a 5th season. We've been told that we were, and I actually, this is a sort of a little bit of a supernatural tie-in, is that Bobby Singer was executive producing and show running a show called Midnight Caller, and he wanted to hire me to play the part that Gary Cole ended up playing. But my agents at the time said, no, The Equalizer's a big hit. Don't turn it down. don't just turn it down. Just keep the equalizer. Stay with the equalizer. And so I did, and they canceled the equalizer almost immediately after I did that. Because it turned out it was a political situation in which Angela Lansbury's show, Murder, She Wrote, Universal raised the licensing fee to CBS for, this is the story I was told, who knows? There's a CBS executive in here, maybe you can tell me that, or Universal executive, that they raised the licensing fee, Universal did to give the show to CBS. So in retaliation, CBS canceled The Equalizer, and I think they canceled Spencer Brothers as well. But such as are the politics of Hollywood, the nefarious ways of Hollywood. Did I answer anything?
Yes, that was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
And so me and my friend were just chatting, we think you've got the most incredible voice. Have you ever considered doing audiobooks or voice?
I've done 100 audiobooks.
Have you done them?
Yeah.
Which ones have you done?
100. I won an audio award once for Tom Robbins' Fierce Invalids Home from Hot Climates. And I was nominated for another one for another book of his called Tibetan Peach Pie. But I've had several nominations and I won several earphone awards as well.
Cool.
So you can go on to blackstoneaudio.com and I think it's called downfor.com and they're all listed there. Or just go into audible.com and punch in my name and they'll all come up. There are literally over 100 titles I've done. I also do video games. One of the more famous ones, I think, was Halo 4, in which I was the didact, as people like to call him, or the didact, as I called him. We are forerunners, guardians of all that exists. I can't believe you didn't know that I've done a lot of audio. I've been doing it for like 35 years. Jeez. I need to get a press agent. Jeez. I've never had one. What's it like? Have I done? Oh, good. I'm glad. I give you individual titles, but I can't remember them all. Yes?
Good morning.
Good morning. Actually, it's afternoon now, but that's okay.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, time flies when you're having fun.
Exactly.
When you got the gig for Donatello, did they tell you what your story arc was?
No.
Just, you got the script and it's like, oh, I'm evil.
I did too. Well, I wasn't evil, but
Well, I mean, you got there, but I mean, in terms of your development as a character.
No idea. In fact, they didn't know that they were going to bring me back. In fact, I think Bobby didn't want to bring me back because he remembered that I turned him down for Midnight Caller. Eugenie Ross Lemming, who was married to him, giving away state secrets here, said, no, we're making it. So I was in season 11, I wasn't in season 12, and then they brought me back in 13, 14, and 15. So that's kind of how that worked. I guess Eugenie said, yes, he's coming back. And Bobby said, only so many. Because she actually wanted to put me in more, and I would have been happy to do more, because I actually loved doing the character. And I loved going to Vancouver, and the casting crew of this show were the best casting crew I think I ever worked with. That's no bullshit. I'm 100%. There wasn't anybody that I didn't like. Well, okay, there was.
Okay, so in terms of becoming a prophet, that's where you started.
What, did you say a prostitute?
What are your rates?
Well, I guess you'll have to talk to creation about that.
Well, I mean, in terms of becoming becoming a prophet at the beginning, and then you, like you say, you're gone for a year, and then you come back. You got the script and you go, oh, I'm Donatella, and now I'm this. I mean, as an actor.
Yeah, no, they never told me what I was going to do before I did it.
So as an actor, because you just talked about the Stanislavski method of that arc and building the bits and stuff. As an actor, how do you pull that stuff together?
You learn your lines and you hit your marks. Honestly, that's what you do. And you know, as you start doing it, as you start having interaction with the other players and with the director and with the camera, it begins to dictate, you know, what level you're going to play it at, where you're going to be, you know, what the energy in the room is. You know, like there are a number of times where I didn't know I was going to flip out in the scene, but I did, and it was really fun. And much to my surprise, they kept it in. So.
Well, it worked. I mean, because it was very believable, and that's what always struck me about your character or your portrayal of Donatello, was it was always believable. I never doubted what Donatello was doing or what you were doing as Donatello. I don't know how to say that. Anyway, it was just.
Well, thank you, because that I try to be honest in every moment, and I think that in film and in TV, you often shoot things out of order, which is very different than doing a play, which you may rehearse things out of order, but eventually it all comes together and it all flows. So you have a sort of a flow, you know what the ebb and flow is. When you're shooting a TV script or a film script, things are often shot out of order. So all you can do is play the values in the scene. I always break down my scripts, and I break it down scene by scene, and I see how many pages it is, where it's at, what characters are in the scene with me, how many lines I have, what's the action in the scene, if there are any special effects or FX, if like, do I have to carry a gun in the scene, am I set on fire in the scene, and I have been, by the way. So it's good to know these things, is all I'm saying, although you never know exactly what's going to happen until you actually shoot it on the day. Because you don't rehearse these things, especially you rehearse on the day, and that's it. It's not like you have a rehearsal 3 weeks before where everybody gets together in a room and kind of goes through what we're going to do. Although some movies do that, like the movie I just have a small part in called Encounter with Riz Ahmed and Octavia Spencer. It's on Amazon, I think. We did actually rehearse prior to the scene, but I had in that scene I had to fire sawed-off shotguns. There's a whole sort of special effects gag that happens, and so all sorts of stuff. So it's like a 3-page scene, but it ended up being 13 days worth of work. So, which is good as far as I'm concerned.
Well, thank you.
Did I answer anything of your question?
You did,
Okay.
and
I talked around it a lot.
well, but that's what makes you so wonderful.
Okay. Well, that's what kind of stuff it is. The guy who talks around everything just like I do. And I can tell you this, Eugenia used to say to me every time she'd write one and I'd see her up there, she would go, we'd have lunch right before I begin shooting, she'd go, don't fuck this up. That's what happens when you've been friends with someone for over 40 years. Yes?
Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So I also have a difficult name to pronounce because it's Israeli, so like no one ever gets it right. And I was wondering, usually like how do you react? Do you try to like tell them the correct pronunciation, or do you just like go along with it?
I usually like to see them struggle. I love my legs. I've heard, Szarabajka, Szarabajka, Sarajevo, Szarabajka, Szarabajka. I love it myself. I was going to let Richard do that, but I couldn't because he actually was a good director, so I had to do that. What do you do?
Usually I'll correct them, but sometimes.
Do you correct them before? Do you tell them how to say it beforehand or after?
After.
Yeah, me
And
too,
also,
usually. Unless they ask.
And also sometimes like, so I do competitive gymnastics, and at awards sometimes I won't even know that they called my name. So like my teammates have to tell me that they called my name.
I hope you've had a lot of chances to not hear your name read right in an awards ceremonies? What awards have you won?
Not too many. I've never gotten first place, but I've gotten like a decent amount of other ones.
And what?
Just in general, I guess. Gymnastics.
Gymnastics?
Yeah.
Are you a gymnast?
Yeah.
Oh, what's your specialty? What's your apparatus, or do you do all around?
I do all around, but my favorite is the vault.
Ah, wow. You notice that guys don't do uneven parallel bars.
Yeah, someone who finally knows gymnastics.
In high school, a lot of my friends were gymnasts. I used to work out with them. Anyway. Am I done? No.
No. It's coming up on lunchtime, so I have chicken wings on my mind. So when you played Donatello, you had a little obsession about chicken wings. So I'm wondering how you, Keith, actually feel about chicken wings.
They're not my favorite dish.
Really?
No, really. I mean, I like them. I have them from time to time, but, it's not my favorite dish. And it's like, I can tell you, I never ate a single one of those.
See, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, I knew it was. Never ate. What I learned very early on in shooting films, on stage it's a different matter, Although I hate to choke when you're trying to give a big speech, that could be a terrible thing. But when you do something in a movie or a TV show, if you eat something and actually put it in your mouth, you're going to eat it at least 25 times. And I once, as a very young actor, it was like in 1978 or 79, in New York, I had to shoot a scene for McDonald's, in which I had to eat chicken McNuggets. And I was really hungry. It was like 6:30 in the morning, and they brought that, and the McNuggets were hot and fresh, and I'm like, God, I'm just gonna have a. So I ate like 3 or 4 of them, and it was great. I'm going, oh, the rest of the day. By the end of the day, I couldn't even put it near my mouth. Because in a commercial, you shoot even more than you do in a movie. So there were probably 150 takes that I had to put that in my mouth, and I learned a really strong lesson. Don't ever put the food in your mouth. Make it look like you've eaten it, but never put it in there. And Xander Berkeley, I don't know if you know him, he's an actor. He and I have had an ongoing discussion on Facebook about this, that he thinks you always have to eat. And I go, never eat, never. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir. I have another one, though.
Okay, good.
What is your favorite go-to adult beverage?
Oh, well, I have 3. Oh God, I guess I gotta leave.
I just heard adult beverage.
Adult beverage. My favorite adult beverages are Lagunitas IPA, all right? Any good Cabernet, all right? And Tal's for single malt Scotch. I'm positive. I'm hoping to get charged or something before the end of the day.
I don't know what the question was, but I strongly agree with the answer. How was it, Keith?
I think I managed to fumble through, yes.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Keith Szarabajka.
Thank you all.
We want to do the whole song?
I mean, we could. No. time. And that means it's you time. Time for you to do whatever it is you do. We don't want to hear about it. None of our beeswax. But go do it! And then we'll be back. All right, see you in a bit.